Many years exactly, but probably our 15 years of hosting the Water and Health Conference. It's scheduled this year, so put it in your calendars for October 27th through the 31st here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in the United States. Again, here's just a side note that if you require a visa to travel to the US, I highly encourage you to start that process now. It's a very tenuous process depending on where you are applying from. And with the shifting sort of global situations, it's great to try and see if you can get your visa early instead of waiting until you find out whether or not an abstract is accepted. So we do encourage you to start that process as early as you can. The focus of the conference is on water sanitation and hygiene and health, but we emphasize science, policy, and practice. And so we want to see an intersection and a group of people coming together from all of those different areas of focus, with obviously an emphasis on WASH issues and health. And so it would be great if you have any questions about whether or not your particular abstract or your research fits in to this conference. Certainly ask us. Taseko will be monitoring the questions in the chat. So as we go along, feel free to ask questions, but we will be hopefully addressing them as we go. And then we'll have time at the end for questions and answers if we haven't answered your question during the slide deck. Okay. Again, I just want to highlight the fact that this is a place where policymakers, practitioners, researchers get together. And it's a very easy way and a safe space for us all to talk about the issues, to challenge each other, and to make sure that we're all improving collectively and having an impact, a better improved impact on the sector through the work that we do together and by challenging each other and making each other better. And so hopefully this webinar will help you and give you a flavor for the conference. And certainly feel free to ask questions as we move along. Next slide, please. So here are some stats from last year's conference. We had over 1,800 virtual registrants. So if you aren't able to make it in person, we're happy to have you join our online platform. But we obviously would really prefer you to be in person if you can. But we have over 500, 600 people who show up on site, and that's fantastic. And we typically have, over 150 countries represented at the Water and Health Conference. So it's really great when we have that nice representation from all over the world. And we also have over 300 organizations that show up to the conference. Last year, we had over 90 posters presented, 103 verbal presentations, and 70 side events. And just to give you a sort of a small statistic is that we have approximately 30% acceptance rate, which is better than the previous year in that it was we had even fewer acceptance. We had fewer accepted simply because I will say that we have, it's a highly competitive process, and we'll go through that with you, which is why we wanted to have this webinar today, is so that we will help you hopefully write a better abstract to improve your chances of being accepted. And we'll go through what a sort of rigorous process it is, but here's a few tips and tricks that will hopefully help you improve your chances of being accepted. So we'll move on to the next slide. Welcome to the people that just joined. Here are a few reminders that I need to make sure that you pay attention to. All of the abstracts are due by Friday, May 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will close the portal. So if you miss that deadline, there is very little opportunity to submit it after. We tend to not reopen it just because our process is highly competitive and pretty structured. So it's not going to be possible for us to reopen it. So please get your abstracts in. by this date and time. Just a couple of reminders, if you're on our listserv, you should have seen the announcement for the Sanitation Workers Award. If this doesn't apply to you, if you aren't specifically conducting research or work related to sanitation workers, don't worry about this. And when you go to submit your abstract, you don't need to check the box that this is a particular award that you want to be considered for. But if you do, and you would like to be considered for the Sanitation Workers Award, then make sure that you note that on your abstract submission. We will try to turn around final scores and invitations to the highest ranked abstract scores by the middle of July. And so we're aiming for July 18th. But again, please, if you have submitted an abstract and you're hoping to attend in person anyway, go ahead and start the visa application process because it will take some time. And so we don't want you to wait until July to begin the process. All presenters will need to be registered for the conference in order to attend in person. So that's just something that I need to remind everybody of, is that it's best for you not to show up in Chapel Hill without registering first. So go ahead and do that. And if you have questions, we're happy to help you. But at the same time, we do need to encourage you to register for the conference. And again, in addition to beginning the visa application process, I highly recommend that you look for other opportunities for sponsorship if you need it. So look for travel scholarships from your institutions and look for opportunities that may exist that you haven't thought of before if you plan to attend in person and need to find some support. We highly recommend you start doing that early. And then again, check back to the website, because if you do need to begin the visa application process, you will require a letter of invitation, and those are things we're happy to provide for you after you provide some information back to us. Okay, moving along. I'm always going to point you back to the conference website over the next few months to check for abstract, but all conference related information. And if you're not on the listserv, hopefully you can join our listserv. Also, we should know by now that the abstract portal is open. It's been open since the beginning of February, but please make sure that you don't wait until the very last minute and you take into consideration all the steps that are required before you submit in order to do so, so that you're not left to the last minute and scrambling to try to submit something at 11:58 p.m. on the 2nd. So I'm here to help you, just give you a brief overview. If you haven't submitted before, we need you to submit your abstract through the abstract portal. It will be called the abstract portal. So if you're looking for a different title, you're not going to find it. Please click on the abstract portal from the website, and it will take you to a form. And you need to complete the form fully. And again, if you have any questions, let us know, but it's pretty straightforward, and hopefully you can follow the directions. And so I would just, if I were you, I would go and check out the website and the portal just to get familiar with it. And then when you actually go to submit your abstract, you won't have to do it in a panic. And if you have any questions, again, let us know, and we're happy to help you. If you have to edit your submission, I think this is a good question, in that I think you need to perhaps wait maybe until a couple of days before it's due to make sure that you aren't submitting something in mistake, and make sure that you go over it a few times before you submit it. But there is the opportunity to submit it again. We would just remove the previous submission. Again, here are the requirements for submitting your abstract. So there are maybe, more than half a dozen sort of reminders that everyone should pay attention to, but there is a maximum allowable word count, and so it's 500 words. Um, you have to submit it by the online form. Don't send it to us in an email. We won't be able to count it. Your abstract title is limited to 15 words. So this is why we suggest you practice, that you refine, that you review, that you edit, that you get a friend or a peer to help you in this process if this is unfamiliar territory to you. You must include a theme for your abstract, but again, it's not like if you don't fit into one of our themes that we reject it. It's just we do pass all of these abstracts through a double-blind peer review process. And so it's important that you include a theme because all of the abstracts go to an expert peer reviewer in the sector who has a specialty in your particular research or your particular work, and they definitely need to review your abstract. And so we definitely need a theme included. Incomplete abstracts will not be reviewed. So if when we're going through all the abstracts, we notice that you have gone over or you have not completed the form, it will disqualify you from the next round of review. You are able to submit multiple abstracts on a single study, but just be sure to coordinate with your other authors to make sure that you're not submitting the same one. It's not encouraged that you all submit, if there are 10 authors on a paper, it's highly recommended to not submit the same abstract. We will be reviewing for duplicates, and so those will be rejected. And again, I hope I don't have to remind folks, but plagiarized works will be rejected. And then we will need to report you to the Abstract Review Committee and remove any of your abstracts from review. Here is the abstract rubric. So this is what each and every abstract is gauged or reviewed or judged against, and it's based on these different evaluation criteria. And we will look at originality and innovation of your particular research and of your work. We'll look at the relevance and broad appeal of your subject matter, of your research. We'll look for clarity, obviously, and for validity, and making sure that you use the proper methods, and that it's readable, and that you have properly captured your work and captured any results. And yeah, looking at the overall structure of it and looking to see if it's, good, needs improvement, unsatisfactory, or if you've just knocked it out of the park and you've hit a home run and it's wildly and it's excellent, and it can be used as an example for how to write an abstract. So all of this information can be found on our website. So we're happy to point you to the website continuously to make sure that you're very familiar with all of the processes and all the things that we're looking at as we review this each and every abstract. If you need, and it would be helpful for you to see previous examples, again, don't plagiarize them, but you can download the abstract books from various previous conferences, and it will help you get a sense of the type of research that's presented at the Water and Health Conference. It will help you and demonstrate to you different kinds of themes that are presented and help you sort of with the structure if that's going to be helpful. And it'll help you capture sort of what other methods are going to be presented and used and the results. So Ryan will get into more detail about this in a few minutes, but again, there are other samples and examples that you can see off of the website. And I encourage you to go there if this is your first time submitting an abstract to the Water and Health Conference, or if you are just trying to get a sense of the type of abstracts that are typically highly ranked. And so again, as I mentioned, if you do need to start the visa process, you need to go to the website, and we will be opening up the visa request letter portal shortly when we open up registration, so at the beginning of May. But if you have an upcoming interview and you need the letter immediately, then feel free to email us and we'll try to turn a letter around for you earlier. But typically you need to be registered for the conference, as well as have a letter of invitation. And that's what you need to take to your visa interviews. So hopefully that answered some questions for you. Again, Ryan's going to get into the details. And so if you have questions that don't get answered in the next couple of slides, then feel free to type them into the chat or wait till the end, till our question and answer. Otherwise, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Ryan Cronk, who's a senior researcher at the Water Institute. And take it away, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, Kata. So just as some additional supplementary materials, you can check out our YouTube channel for some other presentations on how to write a better abstract if that's helpful for you. This session's being recorded and will be uploaded as well. Next slide, please. So for those of you who might not have any background with writing an abstract, it's important that you clearly distinguish between the different important sections of the abstract, which of course are the background, the methods, the results, and the conclusions. You'll also want to include a title and the authors for your abstract. Next slide, please. So in the background, you're going to want to spend some time explaining the purpose of your research, right? You want to talk about the background and any sort of contextual information about your study and establish the motivation for why you're doing the study, and then also outline the objectives of your research. Now, this is a common trap or mistake that people make with abstracts, is they spend too much time on the background section. So you want to keep it short, right? About 1 to 2 sentences to introduce the big picture problem that you're trying to address, clearly and quickly articulate the knowledge gap, and then give your research objectives. So if more than half of your abstract is background, it's probably too much background. In very rare instances would you have significant amount of text. You also should recognize and consider that you are submitting your abstract to a water and health and WASH related conference. Your abstract reviewers are going to be familiar with your work. So it's not like if I was submitting a WASH paper to, say, a journal in sociology, that I may need to spend some more time providing information on why the importance of my work in the field, because sociologists may not have the background knowledge, like, for example, the JMP statistics. They may not know what the JMP even is, or they may not even know the overall health burden. So keep that in mind as you're writing. As you are writing to a WASH audience, you don't need to explain every last little detail. Next slide, please. In the methods, you do want to provide a brief overview of your basic study design. And I would recommend that you include some language that signals what the type of research is you're doing, whether it's a formative study, a randomized controlled trial, a pilot, a lab-based study, modeling study, a systematic review. Clearly state what it is so that you can signal to your reader and the abstract reviewers what they're expecting with your work. If you kind of just vaguely describe things and we have to make conclusions, it's not going to score as highly. And we're only limited to the amount of word count that you have to submit your abstract. We can't make assumptions about your work. So you have to make sure you state your methods very clearly. You should include critical things for a study, things like the sample size. That's really important. I would make sure, even if it's a qualitative study, indicate how many were in your sample. your study location and context. Where did you do the study? How long it lasted? Analytical methods, outcome measures. There's lots of great resources on this. And we would recommend you check out things like the Strobe criteria, and other criteria on broad reporting requirements for method sections. Next slide, please. So some additional questions to answer or to consider. This was one of our most frequently asked questions. You may want to include some information about the activities, the data collection process, any sort of relevant information that you collected around water quality and what types of testing you did, the setting in which you did it, whether it was a household setting or a school or a healthcare facility, all that sort of information. So again, please consult with other resources on good reporting criteria for method sections to make sure you include it. Again, you also don't have that much space, so you need to be very judicious with what you write and how you write it, and making sure you write it as succinctly as possible. Again, you don't want most of your abstract to be spent with background and methods and then have no room to write to describe some of your results and conclusions and implications. Next slide, please. So in your results section, obviously you want to summarize your main research results. You can't include everything. So you need to figure out, if your study has about 17 key findings, you need to figure out maybe the 2 to 3 that are most important that you can include in your text. So I would include things, that are your most significant findings, the most surprising findings. Again, if you have to de-emphasize something, I would recommend de-emphasize things that are already well established in the WASH literature, right? There's no sense in using up space telling us what we already know. This is, again, a WASH conference. You do want to be specific about the new, interesting, and the cutting edge that you have from your work. Next slide, please. In your conclusions, I would recommend that you just write 2 to 3 sentences maximum on what are the key takeaways. What can we learn from your research? But also avoid making broad claims. If you did a qualitative study, don't say that you would anticipate that your findings would be applicable in every other low and middle income country, right? It's a small formative pilot study. Consider the scale at which your results are broadly applicable. Another thing I would recommend is avoid writing sort of hollow statements. Like, don't say sentences like, these findings have important implications for policy, programming, and practice. While that's important that they do, and I'm sure your work does, state simply and succinctly what those implications might be. So, make sure that you are not just again, writing a hollow abstract. And that applies for the results as well. Don't say things like, in this abstract, I'll tell you about the findings of my study and the key findings among subgroups and the other important findings from our spinoff study. Actually state what those findings are. We can't assume what they are, and if we get abstracts like that, they'll score very low. Next slide, please. So on use of AI, the work should be the original work of your submitting authors. You cannot, we're softening this a little bit on use of AI for submissions. Obviously, don't use ChatGPT to write up an abstract and submit it. We can easily detect that it's not original work. It's okay to use AI for things like improving the writing quality, or to help you select, say, write some shorter sentences and that sort of thing. But you do need to make sure that the work is your own. And if you are accepted to the conference, we will request that in your slide deck, you include a statement on where and how you used AI in your study. Next slide, please. All right, so let's go through some of our frequently asked questions. Thank you. We had, I think, well over 100 questions submitted. For this session, we tried to synthesize and summarize them for this slide deck. So again, how to make an abstract interesting. You want to start broad, but obviously not too broad. Don't say things like water is important for life. Everyone who is coming to this conference hopefully knows that statement. You do want to get specific and talk about the exact and precise learnings of your study. Try not to write vaguely. And then, again, make sure that you go broad again and describe the implications of your work. Next slide. Many of you may be submitting abstracts for work in progress. For example, I know several students that are submitting abstracts to the conference that they're currently in the field or going to the field over the summer. So they may have very preliminary findings. That's okay. Try your best to write up what you have. Write your introductions and methods as we've previously recommended. You should hopefully have those. If you're submitting a work in progress, you should absolutely have an introduction and methods. If you haven't figured out what your methods are, I wouldn't recommend that you not submit an abstract to the conference this year. Save it for next year. To the extent that you can write preliminary results, this will allow us to understand whether your project will be finished by the conference. You should probably include a statement on when you're going to finish so that we will have confidence that you will have complete results by the time of the conference. Make sure you may want to emphasize more your methods, especially if it's something of particular and significant relevance to the sector. Say, for example, you're running a new randomized controlled trial and you're just waiting on the final data collection points to come in. That's okay. You should also highlight any expected conclusions from your preliminary findings. And yeah, try to include as much detail and information as possible. It's also fine in some cases to submit partially completed work. For example, some of you may be submitting systematic reviews. You may be halfway through the screening process and data extraction process. You may have some initial results. So you can go ahead and include some of the initial themes that you're seeing. That's fine. And so again, try to squeeze in as many of the initial findings that you're observing from your work. Next slide, please. This is a common question around submitting an abstract and how much is too much theory and how much is not enough empirical results. That's going to depend on your study type. If you are sticking with my sociology theme, if you're using a sociological method, for example, to do some, say, theoretical work in WASH, you may need to include things that are more detail about things that are outside the field that your abstract reviewers may not be familiar with. So if there's a theory that's not well established or widely known in the WASH sector, you may need to describe what that is. So another question here is, after complying with the editorial guidelines in a journal, how can a novice writer make the abstract interesting for it to be accepted in the conference? So I would recommend that you have colleagues review your abstract to help you highlight the most salient and interesting findings. Say if you're a graduate student, I would go talk to your PI or other faculty members or maybe a postdoc or a senior graduate student to have them to kind of critique and comment on your abstracts. They may be able to help you. Let's say, again, if you have 17 key results, they may be able to help you highlight, talk about this thing and this thing and this thing, but not these other things. They'll be able to help you highlight what is most important and what is most novel in the sector. So this next one, when writing an abstract, you have to use the full name of the pathogen that you're researching on, or would you still use abbreviations? So the recommendation here is, again, try to use your best judgment. Things like the JMP or WASH are widely known. You don't need to spell those out if you need to save on word count. Things like E. coli is another one that we're all going to know. You don't need to write out the full, spelling of E. coli. Certain more specific pathogens like Mycobacterium tuberculosis, you may want to lean more on the side of spelling it out. I'd hate for you to submit something that your abstract reviewer doesn't know what it means. Next slide, please. The basis for a decision on a verbal or poster presentation, we have those criteria well established, so please consult with the guidelines. There is not a fee to pay for presenting. However, you do need to register for the conference and pay to attend the conference. You cannot attend the conference for free and present. You have to pay to be there. But whether or not you present, you don't have to pay an extra fee for that. For group presentations, we, under almost all circumstances, do not allow group presentations. You're only going to get about 10 to 15 minutes to present. And so that is not quite enough time to make switches. One of the ways to work around this, I'd recommend, is if your colleagues are going to be attending the conference, I'd recommend having them attend your session and they can help you field questions that come in from the audience. That's a great way to involve your other collaborators. The next question, should the presenter be the lead author of the abstract? Also for co-authored papers or abstracts, what modalities exist for presentations? So if the presenter does not need to be the lead author. However, we recommend that whoever is submitting the abstract is the person most likely to be the presenter. We will not be communicating with all of your co-authors. We will only be communicating with the person who submitted the abstract. We can't keep up with all of your best friends and collaborators and all those folks. It's too much. We're only going to talk to whomever submitted the abstract. So don't have someone who's a little bit irresponsible submitting your abstract, right? Make sure you have someone who's submitting, who's likely to be presenting, and is a good communicator and will forward on the information about whether or not your abstract was accepted and information around your presenting time and all those good details. Next slide, please. So I already mentioned this first point. You do have to be a co-author. I'll just elaborate a bit further. You do need to be a co-author to present. So if you were not listed as an author on the abstract, even if you're near the end, you cannot present the work unless there's an absolute exceptional circumstance. And that typically only happens on the day of. Kata was sick and she couldn't make it to the conference. Can I present for her? Sure, that's fine. We make some of those exceptions. But you need to plan in advance that someone who is a co-author will be attending the conference. I already mentioned the thing about the abstract submitters responsible for communicating. And if you're struggling to figure out authorship criteria, I highly recommend the ICMJE criteria. Those help give clear guidance and role definitions around the roles and responsibilities of who is an author and who is not. So please take a look at that resource if you've never seen it before. Next slide, please. Ooh, titles, always a good one. What's the best way to come up with a title? There's a couple different schools of thought around this. There are descriptive titles, so things like factors associated with functional latrines in Kenya. So you're telling people about the topic, the method you're using, and the location. Other things, you might give away your punchline in the title. That's pretty catchy. Presence of E. coli is associated with higher diarrheal infections amongst young children in Ethiopia. So you're kind of giving away the main finding of your study as your title. Another option is you can ask it as a question. Say you use your research question as your title to help draw in folks to your talk. And I'd highly recommend for abstracts to this conference and for submitting to a journal that you focus a lot of your energy on your title and abstract. Write it and then rewrite it and then rewrite it again, and then have 5 of your best friends, hopefully other scientists, read and edit and comment on it and rip it apart and rewrite it again. The titles and abstracts, when you submit to a journal, are what get indexed in journal databases, and that's how people are going to find your work. And if it's not interesting and it's not got a good title and it's not doesn't describe your work, people aren't going to read it, and so your science is going to get buried amidst all the other science out there. I would highly recommend the most important thing you spend the most time on, relative to word count, is your title and abstract. We've already kind of answered this one about the main factors for successful abstracts. You should, again, consult with the criteria, and maybe have someone, you could even have, again, a friend or a colleague, maybe pretend rate your abstract. The other common reasons for rejection are things like you wrote too much text and then all your main findings get cut. We only read the first, I forget the total amount of word count. Hopefully Kata can clarify that. I think it's maybe 500 words. If you rate more than 500 words, we don't read anything past that. It gets clipped, and your abstract reviewers aren't going to read your 2,000 word abstract. So 500 words is quite a lot. So you've got plenty of space. That's more than most journals allow. Most journals are around 200 to 350 words or so. Next slide, please. Yeah, so another good question around writing outstanding abstracts using secondary data or open data sources. These can be just as compelling, so don't feel like you shouldn't submit this work. I do a lot of work with secondary data, and there's lots of really interesting novel findings, especially in our era of budget cuts to research. There's lots of great data out there. Go find it and download it before it disappears, and write up a great abstract on it. If you're writing an abstract for a rapid review, but wanted to see how abstracts for literature reviews versus systematic reviews are typically done, is their preferred format? Again, I would look at the systematic review. There's a lot of different frameworks for preparing systematic review abstracts. I would look at the PRISMA criteria. I believe there are also guidelines for rapid reviews and for things like systematic scoping reviews. Try as much as possible to comply with standard reporting requirements. Next slide, please. Is it significantly different for presenting at a non-WASH related conference? No, the Water and Health Conference is very similar to other conference presentations. You will be assigned a room and a time and a specific allocation of time. While we do pride ourselves on being a very collegial and friendly conference, we're not so friendly if you talk for longer than your allocated time effort. People want to switch rooms. We've got a very tight schedule and jam-packed content, so we will cut you off if you do not prepare your talk in the appropriate amount of time, or you'll lose all your question and answer time. So, please be mindful of that. So this next question states, I would like to know if there's a specific maximum length for a sentence in the abstract writing. What would you suggest as a guide for length of a sentence? I always recommend shorter is better. You can use your word functions to check your reading level. You could run it through AI and see what it thinks if it's too technical. But I always recommend that shorter is always better. Write clear, concise, short sentences so that your reader will understand what it is you're talking about. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be. Next slide, please. Okay, that's it from me. If you have other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will turn over our closing slides to Kata.
Thank you, Ryan, for going over all of those really important and helpful tips and facts for how to submit and how to think about your abstract before you actually hit the send and submit button. Just as a note, we are accepting abstracts for high-income country WASH like we did last year. There won't be a specific day dedicated just to our high-income country WASH, but it will be woven through the course of the conference. And so some themes that may be included under the high-income country WASH are things like environmental justice, PFAS and water quality, and other toxic metals, well water and private systems, agriculture, wastewater surveillance, rural WASH, and disaster management. Those are all topics that we're interested in, but it's another good reminder that we don't have any themes for the conference as far as topics that we are specifically looking for. And so we do accept a whole range as long as it's related to water or sanitation or hygiene and health, public health. And specifically for, if you're focused on global wash or wash for low resource communities or marginalized communities and households, then yes, we accept all of those abstracts. There are some that might be very specific and more suitable maybe for a different audience, but we do accept all abstracts as long as there's some relation to water or public health and WASH. Next slide, please. And as we mentioned throughout the whole webinar, it would be great for you to check the website on a regular basis, but certainly the purpose of this particular webinar was to help you improve your abstracts. Again, it's a highly competitive process. Last year we had close to 700 abstracts submitted. And so that makes it a very competitive process. They each go through a double-blind peer review, like I mentioned. So we have experts, typically they're faculty from around the world, tenure track faculty who have a lot of experience reviewing abstracts and publications and writing abstracts and papers and publishing. And they're highly accomplished folks in academia, and they will be reviewing each and every abstract through this double-blind review process. And so we are here, Ryan took time to help you craft and draft a better abstract so that you increase your chances of being accepted as a presenter into the conference. And so we hope that you learned something here today. If you have questions, let us know. But again, this will be posted on our website, and you can check out previous years. You can look at previous examples of abstracts that were highly ranked. You can see presentations, and hopefully you'll pick up some of the tips that were presented today. Is there somebody that has a question about something that maybe wasn't mentioned directly here today?
Kata, there's some questions in the chat.
Yeah, hopefully we answered them along the way. We can provide you a letter if you need one for your visa application. But again, we will open that request portal in May with registration, because typically you have to take your registration and a letter to your interview. But we highly encourage you to submit and apply for an interview early and start the visa application process early, simply because it takes some time. And sometimes it takes a minute to accumulate and to get all of your documentation together. Narbir, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you for giving me opportunity. But no any question, but I am interested for the applying this conference with abstract. It is fruitful for me. But I am applying in any time, but I am not get opportunity. That I feel I have some confusion about this. So I am confident about it, so that it is the better opportunity for the extend my experience in water sanitation hygiene. It is good. So that I have one question. I have one concern for about it. How to concern write the abstract for the acceptance about it only for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, just to reiterate, yeah, you don't have to have the results fully known or fully analyzed by the time you submit your abstract, but we highly recommend that you include some learnings that you might already have, or that you spend your time, maybe as Ryan suggested, on the method section, and that when we review the abstracts, that it's competitive enough that by the time the conference comes around, you will have results to share, and that you've captured, your intended questions in your abstract, but you might not have the results, and you just need to let us know that. Any other questions? And yes, you can edit, but again, best thing to do is to make sure that you are fully confident with your submission before you submit it. And so what you don't want to risk is us deleting the version that you wanted. And so, often when you're reviewing 700 abstracts, it makes it difficult if you're getting if you have several submissions, and it's just not a good place to be in. So we highly recommend that you don't leave it till the last minute, that you're confident in what you're submitting, because there is a chance that it won't go as you had hoped. And we don't want you to do it all at the last minute. Okay. Any other questions about the conference? Hopefully the things that Ryan walked through with you today will also help you in your academic pursuits in general, submitting abstracts to other conferences, submitting them to journals, and that you really take into consideration each and every word that you're putting your name to, and that you're submitting. And so hopefully today will help you along in your journey. But these are certainly things that will be helpful for the Water and Health Conference, to make sure that you're submitting your best work. Again, we thank you for participating today. Thanks for showing up. Again, we'll point you back to the website for additional information. Any other final questions or comments or things that need clarification, we're happy to answer them while we've got you. And otherwise, we'll wish you a very happy Monday, or the rest of a Monday for some of you. Taseko has put in the chat the email address that you can reach us at. Bonjour, Moussa. Tu ne parles pas bien anglais, ça ne fait rien. Bienvenue. On peut parler en français si tu veux, mais si tu peux écrire en français, c'est bon. Nous pouvons
Ok,
écrire.
ok, merci beaucoup, madame. Je suis Moussa Ramdé du Burkina Faso.
Ah, bienvenue.
Et voilà, et je suis vraiment très, très content de participer parce que je suis ingénieur Je travaille dans le domaine de l'eau assainissement.
Ah, c'est bon.
Et ce que vous faites, en tout cas, ça va me permettre d'apporter vraiment des solutions, des grandes solutions au Burkina Faso.
Mhm.
Et mon problème, c'est que je ne comprends pas beaucoup l'anglais. Je parle un peu. I speak English, small.
That's okay. C'est pas un problème.
Ok. Je suis en train de préparer en tout cas ce voyage-là pour cette conférence parce que ça va beaucoup m'apporter. Donc, c'est vrai que je comprends un peu ce que vous dites, mais si je peux vous contacter après pour mieux comprendre certaines parties.
Oui.
Ok.
C'est pas de problème. Si tu veux écrire, je peux parler avec vous nous avons autre personne dans l'équipe qui peut
Oui, oui.
aussi parler en français un petit peu,
Ok,
um,
ok.
si ça va aider.
Oui, ça va m'aider.
OK.
Parce que moi, je veux parler un peu d'une expérience du WASH à intégrer avec les jardins nutritifs pour améliorer la qualité de l'enseignement
Mhm.
au niveau de l'école primaire au Burkina Faso. Vraiment, c'est une expérience vraiment qui donne des très bons résultats.
Mhm. Oui, c'est une bonne idée. Alors, on peut parler un petit peu plus quand vous êtes prêts. Thank you to everybody else. I see everybody is moving along, and so thank you, everybody. We hope to see you at the conference and hope to see you in Chapel Hill, North Carolina in October. Look forward to receiving your abstracts and look forward to reading about all the good work that you are doing. And so, again, have a lovely day. Au revoir. Merci, Moussa. And we wish you all the best in your academic endeavors and look forward to hopefully seeing you at Water and Health in October. Thanks to Ryan Kronk and to Seco for helping. And we will sign off for today and point you to the website.